Welcome back to the channel, guys, and in this exciting follow-up to the OneDrive problem video, I wanted to talk about OneDrive sync problems. And can you actually trust that the OneDrive client has actually synced everything? Because I don't know if you've ever noticed, but this actual UI, the way it's been built, doesn't actually give you any kind of like sync report, sync status, and you're meant to just trust that it actually has done its job properly. And obviously, as an engineer, I can appreciate it that other experienced engineers will tell you, are you sure you want to be marking Microsoft's homework? It's just a common thing, right? What is the point? What problem are you trying to solve? But if you're speaking from personal experience like I am, and you have reason to believe that Microsoft do make mistakes, and OneDrive actually does and has deleted files for you, especially for me, I wanted to actually have proof of when that problem actually happened. So I decided to use my remaining GitHub Copilot Pro license. I've still had some minutes left on it. I decided to use those minutes to build a free OneDrive sync tool, which I'm going to give away to you guys for free. And all you got to do is stay right there, watch the video, like and subscribe to the channel, and then send me proof on X or Blue Sky that you've subbed to the channel, and I'll get you added to the private GitHub repository. And that's it. So roll the ducks. Let's jump straight into it, and we'll talk about the very minor Azure portal config that you need to do to get this up and running. See you in the next one. So the OneDrive sync tool that I've built actually has a Azure portal dependency, and you can actually sign up for a free account using the sign up page. And if you're wondering, will you eventually run into any costs associated with this? No, you're not going to run into anything, because there actually is a list of free services, and if you scroll down, you'll find Microsoft Entra ID, which is the cloud component we're interested in using because it gives you access to the Microsoft Graph. As you can see there, it was formerly called Azure Active Directory. And then in the free period column, scroll down, you can see free period. You can see it always says always. So you won't get charged for it. It's a completely free service, and it's an amazing thing that Microsoft offers for you. So go through the sign up process. It will ask you to sign up with your Microsoft account or link or create one. And then eventually, when you're successful, you should land yourself into quite a blank, empty looking homepage like this. Your journey starts in Microsoft Entra ID, and then in Entra ID, you, on the left-hand side, expand the nodes, and eventually you'll find something called app registrations, and then app registrations, you've got a couple of boxes to fill. That's all you need to do, because once you actually have the registration built, we're going to lift the client ID out of it, and that's all the application needs to do its job. And if there's any questions, in the repository, you'll find the basic setup steps. So there's nothing to worry about. This is my client ID. It won't be relevant to you because it only works with mine. And I'll blur this out so you guys won't see it for security reasons. But that's all you need to do to get up and running with the main prerequisite, which is you need access to the Microsoft Graph. And the only way in is to the Azure portal, which gives you the ability to set up an Azure AD component called an app registration. Once that's in place, you're free to start actually using the application and authenticating with it. So I'll see you in the next part of the video where we'll actually start using it, and I'll show you some of the benefits and features it offers. Peace. See you in the next one. So Microsoft don't actually give you a Linux variant of the OneDrive client. Now this creates several problems, because if you're trying to create an open source kind of network-based solution that lives on your Raspberry Pi, then that syncs to your network storage like mine, you're going to have to start thinking about either hand cranking your own sync tool or look for something on GitHub that someone else has already written. And then this is kind of where the problem comes in from. Where do you want to solve the problem? I actually am not interested in solving the problem on my Raspberry Pi, because I think anything that concerns your family history, your OneDrive memories, or Dropbox, etc., I think you should manually curate it, and before you start thinking about automating these routines with Docker containers and cron jobs and things like that. But it does pave the way of how you can start moving away from paying Microsoft or Dropbox for the storage and things of that nature. So yes, Microsoft don't give you a Linux variant, but you can handle your own one using Cloud Code, GitHub Copilot. Luckily, I still had some usage left on my Copilot account. I've completely maxed it, and I probably won't be renewing it because they don't give you access to the premium models anymore, like Claude Opus. So that's a big deal breaker for me, because this application has got a few bugs in it, but you're welcome to use it if you sub to the channel, like the video, stuff like that. send me a message on Blue Sky and or X or whatever you're comfortable with, and then I can get you added to the repository. So the application is written in .NET because I actually have a .NET background, and this makes sense because the application needs to talk to Microsoft Graph, so we're going to use Microsoft libraries, so it makes sense to use Microsoft tooling to solve this problem. And you can use this mentality to drive your prompts whenever you're building new applications. You can actually ask the agent to think critically about what are the right tools, libraries, and frameworks to pick when building a new application. That's a very important prompt. So this was all built using Claude Sonnet 4.6. So I've done a lot of heavy testing on it, and there's still a few bugs in there, but I wanted to show to you the premise of the application, that it actually is just a command line utility. It has no visual UI maintenance element to it. There's no web application, no React crap. It's literally just a ruthless, lean application with a very small footprint, and it just uses official Microsoft third-party packages, and the only one I've kind of sanctioned it to use is the Spectre console, which is what we use so that you can run it from the command line. You got a nice shell-like experience. It's got a few things missing from there, but as it's a great place to start from a user experience perspective, which you'll see shortly, and it uses nothing else. The more stuff you add to your application from a maintenance perspective, the bigger your maintenance footprint becomes. There's a good chance the application may get hacked or vulnerable, because the more third-party packages you have in your application, there's a greater chance of CVEs and vulnerabilities being discovered in the packages over time if you choose not to maintain the application, if you fork it and run your own thing and customize it. So as you can see, it is written by an agent because there are a lot of telltale signs. I didn't write it, but I am a .NET C# coder, so I can understand a lot of what this does. It does come with a nice README file, so you can read that to get yourself up and running with. You do need the .NET 10 runtime before the application would run. You do need that if you want to publish your own self-contained executable. It does default to x64. If you want the 32-bit version, you need to change that to x86. And then you do need to use this if you wanted to Dockerize it as well and put it on a container and run it in a Linux environment like a Raspberry Pi, so you can get an ARM64 version should you want that as well. There is a config file. Typically, the standard is these files are called appsettings.json, so I'm a little bit annoyed it's called config, but whatever. And in the config, you tell it where your OneDrive sync location is. Where does OneDrive run from? Mine runs directly from my D drive. And then it's got some instructions here should you have missed anything on the Azure portal setup guide, where you've got to set up the app registration, which this application directly needs and directly depends on. So let's jump to the next part of the video where I'll give you an overview of how this application works when you run it for the first time. So to run the application, there are quite a few ways of how you could run the application. You can just be in the root directory with the code checked out. You need to have the .NET runtime installed on your machine, and then you could just do .NET run. And that brings up the application for you, where you can then authenticate using Chrome. It grabs a token, and then it logs you in locally, it creates a session, and then you can actually start interacting with your files against what you can see in the cloud. Now, you don't have to do it that way. You can just go into the root directory, publish location, and then there should be a OneDrive version of the application that's built using the publish script. The publish script is right here. And you can customize the publish script to meet your needs, such as x86 for 32-bit. You can also use it as a base to build a Docker version should you want to run it on Raspberry Pi and start doing your own cron jobs and scheduling. That's not my bag. I didn't want to solve this problem for my Raspberry Pi. This is a Windows problem. That's why we're here. But yeah, so there are quite a few ways to run the application. I tend to run it as the typical developer route, which is just .NET run. I'm always going to have .NET on my machine because it's just my thing. So yes, so authenticate, log in, pick an account that is your OneDrive account. I've already previously authenticated. It gives you the authentication passback. It lets the shell know that you've logged in, gives you this nice green visual prompt, visual cue, and then it lets you know at the top that you've logged in with your email address. And then basically this is just the start of your journey. You pick the top 4 options to do very quick local indexing, cloud-based indexing, a bit of both. Then what that does is it creates the snapshots for you. So we're going to do a full local snapshot and cloud snapshot. We're going to go into here. We're going to give it a label. We'll just say full snap like that. And then we're going to pause the video because this generally always kills the video. So this is what the snapshot looks like when the process has fully completed. And you'll notice that the cloud snapshot's very quick. The local snapshot when you're on the full mode is quite long. And that's obviously dependent on the sheer volume of files it needs to index. And a new feature which I wasn't aware of was that in OneDrive using the graph, it's actually got a delta feature where it looks for the differences between 2 points in time, which is the reason why once you've done a full snapshot of the cloud, it's only going to look for what's changed. So that's FYI. And then that creates a snapshot. It puts in the local database. If I've not mentioned that, everything's tracked in a local SQL database, very lightweight, nothing heavy. And then you click enter. And then at the bottom, you can actually list all your snapshots. It renders a really nice table. It puts a tag on the latest one. And you can actually start editing the labels if you want to give them names. So, for example, label 10, edit label, we'll just call this sample. And then you can see that it's actually updated the label. You can also delete the snapshot should you not be happy with it, if it offers you no value. So there's some basic CRUD functionality built into this view. And the whole idea is that you pick snapshots and then you run them under a comparison feature which the application offers. And there's a back button that allows you to go back to the main menu. I've realized I've not actually wired up the escape key, which I should do. But then when you actually have enough snapshots built, you can actually use the reporting feature to look for drift. So I've carefully curated and picked 2 locations in time. So we'll pick these 2. And as you can see, quite a lot of, we just saw a wall of text instantly flood your machine. And that's the whole point of what this tool is about. Now you can sift through the evidence to see what's changed. It's telling me there's about 3,000 changes. There's still probably things I can do to probably improve the user experience. But the point is to give you actual evidence of where things are changing in the cloud if you're looking for a file that's changed, deleted, or been removed. So it breaks down the files that have changed locally. It breaks down the files that are clearly removed with a minus symbol, and then just skip to the top. And then at the top, it tells you these are the files that have been added. So these ones are the files that get automatically added because I do a lot of work with Windows snipping tool. This is great. This is the whole point of what I wanted to do. And this will give you a lot more like deep analysis in terms of where is the proof of are things changing. And this is the great thing I like about it. So let's just cancel out of here. So that's the snapshotting tool. Look for differences between snapshots, look for the drift. The duplicates one needs a bit more extra TLC. So if we look for duplicates in the cloud, you pick for 2 snapshots. But as you can see, it should only be showing you snapshots that contain a cloud snapshot alongside. So let's look for duplicates in this one. And then you can see there's lots of wastage. So it's a really cool feature. Apparently, I've got Call of Duty videos duplicated in a few locations. This is because when you use Clipchamp, you can actually duplicate files in multiple locations. So that's the name of the video, and it puts it under the assets folder, which kind of makes sense, but once again, problems. And then you've also got this feature which I added, which is whenever you've got multiple copies of a file, it will tell you straight away if it's a copy because Windows automatically adds the dash copy, and then you can build programmatic features around that too, which is kind of cool. So there are like flags of how you can run the command line tool, so you can actually tell it to filter and give you like specific information. So as you can imagine, there's probably a lot more effort that can go into how this feature can run. It's just a wall of text. Can I get it a bit more filtered, a bit more nuanced? But anyway, the last one is gives you a health dashboard. So here you can clearly see I've got 57 files missing locally, which kind of makes sense because I've got a lot of duplicate crap and I don't know how this has happened over time from old OneDrive notebooks. I used to use OneNote a lot once upon a time. And then another cool feature which I added was once there's an aggregation feature if you're used to SQL, you can aggregate locations to see where do you actually have the most files that are missing locally. And then you can demand it to open the location inside OneDrive. And it's like a halfway house. It's not fully working, which is kind of annoying, but the idea is that it's supposed to open up this location, supposed to go straight to this location, but it kind of does not work fully. So I'm kind of trying to improve on that somehow because previously I got it working where it was just giving you the actual file and it said, I found this file, it's a duplicate, but that's clearly not what I'm interested in. So there's lots of scope for expansion, lots of potential. I really like the way it works. There's only 12 in this one. Let's look at this. So these are 12 files which have been moved locally. So this is concrete proof that OneDrive, it's not its own fault. OneDrive does a very difficult job of trying to maintain and keep two worlds in sync, and usually the cloud version is usually the version that it tracks and maintains, right? And that's the thing is, I've never seen anywhere in the OneDrive application where you can tell it the master location that this location is the location we track, and anything that changes here must be replicated everywhere else. I've always found that nuance difficult because I don't think they really make that obvious to you. But anyway, I hope I've convinced you that this is quite a useful application if you're a OneDrive customer and you've been paying Microsoft for all these years to back up your stuff. And then there's kind of random mode where it shows everything as well. Go back. And then the last one is a status dashboard, which is kind of cool where kind of all the stuff is tracked. It shows you any drift between like latest copies, so 16 and 20. It gives you like an overview of generally how bad things are in terms of like things that have been moved. And then it lists your latest version. I kind of like it. It does work remarkably well. I quite like the way it works. And you can see here, my actual database lives under the roaming folder, which I kind of moving locally, but it's not a big deal, I guess. But that's it. Thanks for watching. That is my OneDrive sync tool. If you want it, please do sub to the channel. It's going to be completely for free. All you got to do is send me some evidence that you have liked and subscribed, I guess. But yeah, thank you. I'll be giving a shout out probably on X, where I'll be promoting it at Blue Sky. So if you see it on there, you can always comment on the tweet. But thank you so much for watching. See you in the next one.